of the embassy and the streets around it first came up in December, they had at least one direct conversation, and Ambassador Ford has been in a number of times since to talk to Foreign Minister Mwalim's deputies, but I don't think that in a couple of weeks they've had a direct conversation.
Did they speak about the violence at all, about the fighting, the homes, Hama?
My understanding, and I don't have a full readout on that conversation, is that it was relatively pro forma, business-like. We don't think that the Syrian government has any questions about where we stand on these issues, particularly given the president's statement over the weekend about the violence and the strong comments that the secretary had both in Munich and in Sofia, strong statements from Ambassador Rice in New York over the weekend. Please.
Victoria, can you elaborate a little bit about the nature of the threat? Some news reports have said that it's directly linked to Al-Qaeda. Is this precisely the threat, or are you talking about general things that emanate from other groups? Some even talk about President Assad released some fighters who's going to Iraq and they might be linked to Al-Qaeda.
Nicole, have a seat. There's room down here. Oh, she's being modest and sitting over there. Well, I'm not going to get into details of our security assessment beyond saying, as we say in the statement that we released today, our concern is that the situation in and around Damascus is becoming increasingly violent, reflecting the fact that the regime is increasingly losing control of the situation because it itself has resorted to violence rather than dialogue with its own people. Our embassy facility, for those of you who know Damascus, is right at the confluence of many main streets. It has no protection or setback to speak of. I will say, Nadia, that for almost 20 years, the U.S. government has been petitioning the government of Syria to be able to move the embassy to have a plot of land elsewhere that was better protected, as we have for many of our missions. And we were never able to come to an agreement on that. So this is obviously regrettable and not what we wanted, but where we are.
Just to follow up quickly, I know that you're talking about a security threat, but some saying that basically Arab states now should close their embassies in Damascus as a measure to step up pressure on President Assad. Would you encourage that?
Well, a number of Arab states have already taken that measure. You remember that our analysis was that if we could keep Ambassador Ford and our personnel there, our analysis was that that would help us to maintain contact with the Syrian people. We will now endeavor to do that from Washington. I think each nation has to make its own decision how best to support the Syrian people as we go forward.
Can you underscore the exact state of the relationship between Washington and Damascus? I've had people ask me, does this mean that relations have broken off? And I've said, no, but can you explain exactly what it means to not have a physical ambassador right there in Damascus?
We have suspended our diplomatic presence in Damascus. We have not broken diplomatic relations, and there's a difference there. Nicole.
Hi, could you tell us a little bit about what steps the U.S. might take next? What is Plan B given the failure of the resolution in the Security Council?
Well, I think the Secretary spoke to this quite fully in Sofia yesterday. She was asked the what next question, if you will, and she spoke about a number of matters. First of all, in a situation where the Security Council has been blocked from acting in support of the Arab League plan, in support of the defense of a democratic path for Syria, we're going to have to take measures outside the UN to strengthen and deepen and broaden the international community of pressure on Assad. So to continue his diplomatic isolation, to work with as many countries as we can to increase both regional sanctions and unilateral national sanctions on the Assad regime, to pressure those countries that are still trading with him, and particularly that are trading weapons or otherwise fueling his war machine, to stop. Secretary also spoke yesterday, and you've seen a number of other foreign ministers speak about the friends of a democratic Syria, those countries around the world that stand for a transition, that support the Arab League plan, doing more together to support a path forward for them, to provide what humanitarian relief may be possible. That's obviously difficult, but we want to look at that. and to provide political support for them. So those conversations are now going forward among the countries that might want to be part of this kind of a Friends initiative, and we'll see where that conversation goes in the coming days and weeks. Please.
Can I follow up on that? Will it be some kind of formal meeting of this new group?
Again, we're at the stage of consulting with like-minded countries and with the Arab League, and we'll see how this develops as we go forward. Still on Syria?
Yeah, Foreign Minister Lavrov will be visiting tomorrow Damascus. Do you expect any more hardening position, Syrian hardening position, or what do you expect?
Well, I'd obviously refer you to the government of Russia with regard to their expectations for this visit of Foreign Minister Lavrov. He did advise the Secretary that he intended to do this when they saw each other in Munich. Our hope and expectation is that Foreign Minister Lavrov will use this opportunity to make absolutely clear to the Assad regime how isolated it is, and to encourage Assad and his people to make use of the Arab League plan and provide for a transition and step away himself.
One more question, please. One more. Did you receive any signal from their embassy here that they may suspend their operation as well?
We have not.
How is he going to show the isolation of the Assad regime if he's coming to visit the government in Syria at a time when everyone else is running away?
Well, he can certainly make clear what it felt like to be 2 of 15 on the Security Council. That certainly speaks to the isolation. 13, as the Secretary made clear, both in Munich and in Sofia, 13 other members of the Council were ready to join this resolution
Yeah, okay.
from 4 continents.
They had China, that's over 1 billion people, so you already got 20% of the world population.
And
It's not complete isolation.
It's 2 countries from 2 parts of the world when the rest of the Security Council, representing 4 continents, was ready to support the Arab League plan and the Syrian people. Please.
Why have you chosen Poland to represent the U.S. interests in Syria? And could you elaborate on the role of Polish diplomats representing the United States?
Well, as I said, we are delighted that the government of Poland was willing and able to accept this responsibility. To my knowledge, it may be the first time that we've asked our ally Poland to be a protecting power for the United States. Poland maintains an embassy that is effective enough to take on this extra workload. They are a strong ally and partner of the United States. A protecting power obviously provides consular services to Americans in need, provides advice to Americans, and as necessary, if messages have to be transferred between us and the government of Syria in Damascus, they will be the transferring entity in that case, both from Damascus to us and the other way around.
But Tony, you just said that you're hoping that when Foreign Minister Lavrov meets with the Assad regime on Tuesday, that he would deliver the message that perhaps Syria should go along with the Arab League initiative. If Russia took the time to veto it on Saturday, what did Lavrov indicate to Secretary Clinton that gives the U.S. the impression that he might actually say, you need to take a second look at this Arab League proposal? It doesn't seem to make sense.
Well, I'm obviously not going to get too deeply into the conversation that they had in Munich, which we described at the time as quite a vigorous conversation. I will say that it was clear from that conversation that the government of Russia also, as they've said publicly, has concerns about the escalating spiral of violence in Syria and about where this could lead, not only inside the country, but for the region as a whole, for Russia's relationship with the government of Syria. You've seen recently some public statements from Foreign Minister Lavrov and his people that they are not interested in protecting anybody in particular, that they are also interested in peace and security. So they have made some public statements about wanting to seek a political solution. Let's see what they can achieve.
I have quick couple questions. A couple of other world leaders over the weekend also talk about a contact group on Syria or Friends for Syria. What's your understanding? Have you started any kind of a process to create this group?
Well, Nicole, I think, asked, and her colleague sitting next to her asked the same question a moment ago. And my answer to that was that this is an idea that a number of countries have been thinking about, of how the friends of a democratic Syria can work better together. And we're continuing to talk about it among interested countries, including the Turkish government. The Secretary had a relatively brief meeting with Foreign Minister Davutoglu in Munich about the way forward, et cetera, and we'll continue to talk about
Foreign
it.
Minister Davutoglu is coming to U.S. This week. Some say in Turkey that one of the topics will be buffer zone. Is there any way you can elaborate the issues regarding Syria?
Well, beyond saying that they always talk about Syria, and I expect that they will again, I'm not going to preview a meeting that hasn't happened yet. Please, in the back, still on Syria?
On this Friends of Syria group,
Yeah.
just if you can, could you be a tiny bit more specific just about who we're talking about other than Turkey and Great Britain and the United States?
Well, let me say, beyond saying that we have a number of European countries interested in this idea, a number of Arab countries interested in this idea, I think we need to have a little bit of time to work with partners and allies. But as we made clear, we had 13 out of 15 Security Council members thinking we need to do more to support the Arab League plan and a democratic Syria. In the absence of being able to work in a UNSC context, we have to clearly put together a group that can work outside the UNSC.
So what's the hope then for the Syrian people? We're seeing more video coming out of the crackdown in homes over the last 72 hours. How much longer do they have to wait for someone to try to help them against this government?
Well, again, Roz, this was the travesty, as Secretary Clinton said, of what happened in New York on Saturday. There is a plan on the table. It's a plan that would provide a very clear way forward, and it was blocked and vetoed in the UN. So the question becomes how we can continue to support the Syrian opposition in its effort to pull together its own plan, to work in a consolidated and unified way, to have its voices heard in a peaceful manner going forward, and how, if and as necessary, and it's very difficult now with the monitors unable to operate, we might be able to provide some humanitarian support. So these are all things we're going to look at, but also this issue of squeezing and pressuring the regime economically and by cutting off its arms so that the money that's fueling this war machine dries up. Please.
Would you support any move aiming to bring Assad before the International Criminal Tribunal?
Well, obviously he's going to have to be accountable for what he's done. It's going to be up to the Syrian people how that happens. Please, Nadia. Yeah, are we still on Syria? One more.
Are you considering
I
to
like
open?
the beard, I think. I can't tell
Yes,
from here. Yeah.
from Syria.
Are we keeping it, or is it just a vacation hangover?
Till Assad goes.
Till
I think
Assad goes,
yeah,
wow.
yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Excellent, excellent. I like that. I
Thank
like
you.
that.
Are you considering to open virtual embassy or digital diplomacy for Syria since you closed your embassy there?
Well, again, we have a very active digital program with the Syrian people now. Ambassador Ford will obviously continue his Facebook page, his Twitter, his dialogue with the Syrian people, and we do that not only with Ambassador Ford, but through the State Department platforms. So we have many, many ways to maintain our connections, as well as the connections of some of our other senior folks here in the department. Please, Nadia.
Your good ally Qatar seems to have brokered another deal between Fatah and Hamas, whereby President Abbas is going to be the head of this interim government. First of all, your reaction to that? Do you welcome this?
Well, we've seen these reports of the developments in Doha. We're obviously seeking more information about precisely what was agreed. But as we've said many times, questions of Palestinian reconciliation are an internal matter for Palestinians. What matters to us are the principles that guide a Palestinian government going forward in order for them to be able to play a constructive role for peace and building an independent state let me just reiterate those for all of you again. Any Palestinian